Welcome to the Research Works podcast, live from the European Academy of Childhood Disability Conference 2024 in Bruges, Belgium. Join us for interviews with keynote speakers, world-renowned researchers and clinicians, and behind-the-scenes stories from one of the great paediatric conferences in the world.
Hello everyone, I have got Stefanie Bradley here with me at the moment. She's from Bloorview Research Institute and the Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital. Hello and welcome, Stefanie.
Thank you.
So nice to have you. We have scheduled this so much so that you've just presented. So yes, that high of like the nervous anticipation. So this will continue for a little bit longer, but this is a casual conversation. It'll be great.
Excellent.
And hopefully we can expand a little bit more on what you presented. So before I get you to give a bit of a summary, which I know is always so hard to summarize all this work into 60 seconds. Yes. We'll start from there. But the title of your presentation is Feasibility, Integration and Outcomes Associated with 6 weeks of Physiotherapy-Assisted Exoskeleton Therapy in a School and Outpatient Context for Children with Cerebral Palsy. It's a great title, lengthy, but you got to include all the detail in there. So that gives a really good overview already. But how about you give us a bit of a summary of what your work entails?
Sure, yes. So I'm from Toronto, Canada. I'm working at a pediatric hospital, and essentially we're looking at how a robotic exoskeleton can be incorporated into physiotherapy for children between the ages of 4 and 6 years old. Okay. So it's been quite a journey. We got a exoskeleton called the Trexo Plus exoskeleton from Trexo Robotics in Canada. And essentially we have been training up our clinicians, our physiotherapists on how to use this exoskeleton and then deliver productive therapy.
Okay.
So we incorporated that into a school for JK to grade 1 aged children. And essentially we were tracking how feasible it is to work in school when they're receiving the exoskeleton therapy 2 times a week. Okay. Once in gym class and once individually. And then we also did it in our outpatient center as well.
Fabulous. Okay. Yeah. So really was trying to integrate to a very natural setting for a lot of these kids, which is school. Well, let's get into a little bit of this, the Trexo itself in terms of how does it work? Is it active? Is it assisted? Like what's the system involved?
Yeah, so it's called a lower limb exoskeleton. The exoskeleton is special because it actually suspends from a traditional walker. So if you picture a walking frame, the exoskeleton legs extend down vertically and it kind of aligns with the user's own legs. Yes. And it helps guide their legs through the gait cycle.
Right. Okay.
So it is powered. There is a battery that also is suspended onto the walker and it provides a proportional amount of assistance to the user, however much they need.
Okay. Yeah. And is that support that's being provided, is it dynamic? Is it something that you can preset for just a certain level? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The whole exoskeleton is controlled with a tablet. Okay. It's actually very easy to use. And there's tons of different adjustments that can be made in terms of support and comfortability. So you can change how much mechanical assistance is provided by the exoskeleton. Okay. Some kiddos need a little bit more of a push for initiating gait, and some kiddos have a little bit more function, so they can initiate more on their own.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's quite flexible for the child's needs.
It is.
Really. Yeah. Great. And so, I mean, I think I've seen them before in terms of the walker. It's the Riften Pacer. I think I've seen that online. Does it fit any other kind of supported stepping device or walking frame, or is it just the Riften?
As far as I know, it's just the Riften, and the sizes kind of align with the Riften sizes. So at our center, we have a medium-sized Trexo, which aligns with the medium-sized Riften.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And what does it look like from a transferring kids into the exoskeleton? I feel like, I'm a physio, so I'm always going to ask these questions.
No, for
but
sure.
when you're in school, I'm sure those are questions that get asked a lot too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, I work with all the physiotherapists. I know that they are tight on time sometimes when they have a million clients, and the setup is really important. So we've actually tracked the setup time for the study. It takes about 5 minutes. Okay. But for us, I mean, we're very thorough with the way that we're doing our fitting. So we kind of have a personalized adjustment profile that we save for every child. Yes. And then we will extend the leg lengths for the Trexo for however long they need to be for each child. And our physiotherapist became very competent very quickly in terms of setup.
Yeah. I think, when you have a background of bony structures and anatomy, you know where things might need to align. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of the study now. So it was a single group study, am I correct?
It was.
Yep.
Yes.
And can you tell me a little bit more about the outcome measures that you used?
Yes.
Yeah.
So here in Belgium, I was presenting feasibility measures for the most part, but our study is actually quite vast, and we are tracking muscular outcomes, we're tracking neuroimaging outcomes, and we're tracking heart rate, we're tracking qualitative outcomes, we're tracking just about everything we can.
On the ICF, just map it all out.
We really want to know how it affects the whole body, you know? So our intervention is 6 weeks long. And the reason it's a single group study is because it's a feasibility study. So 10 children. Yep. And now that it's finished, we know that we're able to extend probably to a broader demographic. Okay. Maybe GMFCS level 5s. Okay. Our study was with GMFCS level 4s. Right. And in future, if we also expanded the study, I would love to measure some psychosocial metrics and quality of life as well.
Yeah. Great. Okay. So you have a wide range of measures. Absolutely fantastic. A question with regards to, well, actually, let's just summarize the findings first before we get into more of the details. I've got so many questions, but what were your main findings, the ones that you presented today?
So today, the main findings we presented were safety. So we tracked any discomfort any child felt during the study. We found that the exoskeleton, in summary, is very safe. Out of all 120 physiotherapy sessions, there was discomfort noted in 12% of them. Okay. And discomfort as in like post-use discomfort or during use discomfort of, the brace or? Post-use, it was all very minor. Generally resolved within 30 minutes. Some transient redness, essentially. It's commonly seen with different types of exoskeletons like the Locomat or other things that require, kind of a complex fitting with the child's body. Sure. Okay. We also tracked goal setting. So there were goals set with the treating physiotherapist. There were goal sets with the families. Yes. And we found that overall, all the individualized goals were met and exceeded, actually. Okay. Which was surprising in a very pleasant kind of way. And we also measured the GMFM as our primary motor measure of the study. So we did find that the average change was around +1. So it's suggestive of a positive change. It's probably too small of a group to say whether it's clinically meaningful. I would love to see it with a larger group. Yeah. I mean, that'd be interesting. I was just talking about it quite with another presenter earlier. You can measure with the GMFM, but when they're very specific interventions that might not target areas of the GMFM, you may not find that overall change, right? We talk about this a lot.
So being really specific. So individual goals is really important to be able to track, particularly in a feasibility. Like, what are we actually looking at here?
For sure. And I mean, with these kids, even our group of 10 is so diverse. We know CP is so diverse in general.
That's right. Yeah. So when it comes to these results, so they're trending in the right direction. It tells you that you want to look into it a little bit more. Why would someone use a Trexo for, in this group, up to 6 years of age, 4 to 6, wasn't it? Versus not using a Trexo, particularly for kids who, would use a supported stepping device anyway. Why would you go down the path of a Trexo?
So essentially, when we were choosing the group for this study, GMFCS level 4s, we thought that they might have the most to gain in terms of novel experiences with the device. So, I mean, they do spend the majority of their day sitting in an adapted stroller or a wheelchair. And we found that this device could expose them to really new and novel muscle movements, potentially some sensations that they've never felt before. And even just showing them what stepping feels like, reciprocal stepping, that maybe they haven't experienced in their manual walker. And for these kids, using their manual walker is sometimes very effortful. Sometimes it depends on the child, but sometimes it can be a little bit stressful. So the exoskeleton provides support so that they can still do upper and lower based extremity activities, and it might not be so effortful.
And are you expecting to see that if they're using the exoskeleton, they'd be better at doing their overground walking on their own without the exoskeleton? Because I imagine whilst you're doing this at school, they might not have this at home. Are you expecting to see those changes, or probably haven't looked at that in the study.
We actually are.
You are? Great. Okay, good. Okay.
Yes. I forgot to mention those outcomes, but yes, we're looking at carryover. And we were doing some gait analysis and tracking in terms of when they use their regular walkers versus when they use the Trexo. So we were seeing, we were doing the 6-minute walk test, the 1-minute walk test, and looking at quality of gait, how it changes pre and post exoskeleton training.
Ah, I see. Yeah. Okay. No, that's really interesting. Because I think that's such an important area to look at, which obviously you guys are all over already. I remember there was a talk I went to several years ago, and I remember Diane Damiano's, was making a comment about just when we're using exoskeletons, because I know she looks into that a fair bit as well. It's just the balance of what's being provided for the person versus the internal drive of how they initiate it. And it's being careful of that balance, isn't it? So making sure that if you're going to use this, you're also having time outside of it, so you're still initiating.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we were tracking some occupational measures as well. So how it affected their daily life at home. Parents would make goals like being able to hold a spoon for self-feeding or being able to sit upright on a couch to read a book.
Right.
And those were things that we kept track of as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So we're aware it's like a whole body experience. We saw lots of things we didn't expect to see, like changes in like maybe self-esteem or confidence, communication, verbalization. Yeah. Things I wasn't prepared to track at the beginning of the study.
I'm really measuring so many things. What else to add? But I mean, all things, whether or not it improves a child's ability to take more steps by themselves, I suppose the most important thing is there's autonomy of movement. Yes. It's embracing what mobility could look like, even though it might look different for different people. Yes. And we just need to be able to pursue those ideas when it comes to autonomy of movement without a therapist always holding on to them. Like, it can't be about us with them all the time. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So where to from here then? Because obviously there's a lot more to go for this work and this being a feasibility. Where do you hope to see this head?
I mean, I would love to see the exoskeleton used. Well, I know it is being used, but I'm not sure in a research context for groups outside of cerebral palsy. Okay. GMFCS level 5s we think would be a good fit for the device in the physiotherapy context, and we would love to try that as well. Right now, I'm in the part of my PhD where I'm kind of analyzing all the numbers, crunching all the data so that I can summarize everything.
Yeah, into one slide. It'll take 30 seconds to talk about.
Yeah, or
so depressing, isn't it?
In the case of today, 7 minutes, which seems impossible. I'm here with also Dr. Virginia Wright, who's a physical therapist and one of my PhD advisors. So she does tons of incredible work, as well as Dr. Tom Chow, who's my other advisor. Yes.
Great. So lots to look at there. And I suppose it's something that we want to see more of and always want to know more of, because I know I've only seen this in social media. Like there's social media and what that accounts for. And we just want to be able to understand what it actually is for and who's it best used for and what the parameters are. Because often you just get snapshots on social media.
For sure. Yeah. I think with new technology, it's all about kind of refining that fit, right? So I think some people use exoskeletons, as a walking device, a gait trainer. For our study, we were using it in focused physiotherapy. Yeah, right. I know the Trexo is in the homes of some families, so it's the parents using the Trexo. Yeah, okay. For us, we kind of took a clinical approach.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, no, that sounds really interesting. I guess the only last thing to go from here is something that people will always be talking about, I guess, cost-wise. How do people fund this at the moment? I know this is part of a study, so it's a little bit different probably, but any advice there?
Yeah, so we were very fortunate in that our hospital foundation got us the Trexo. Okay. So we use one device that's shared between multiple children. Okay. I think for the Trexo home device, there is a leasing option for families if they can't afford paying the price up front. And I believe some insurance companies are starting to look into covering it, but I'm really not up to date with that side of things.
Yeah, okay, sure. So at the moment, just looking at the parameters of its use and then from there looking at the economics of how it can be used. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think studies like this kind of justify why it should be funded, right? Because if we're seeing positive results and beneficial outcomes, I mean, it seems to be a good candidate for funding.
Yeah, sure. And I think there's so many competing things for funding, right? So I think, you want to do good quality studies to be able to highlight what that might look like. And who knows, it might be a postdoc for a health econ analysis.
That's true.
there's always more to go on that. Well, Stefanie, thank you so much for speaking with us today. Really appreciated your time, especially coming straight from your presentation. Hopefully this means you can have a big sigh of relief now and just enjoy the conference.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It was very fun.
It's a pleasure to have you. So to all of our listeners, I hope that was really useful for you as well. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you all again really soon. Bye.
Bye.